I'm on screen.
Okay, here we are now officially on YouTube Live, and we have a few people joining us, and it is 11 a.m. So with the spirit of being right on time, we're going to just start. Jim Casteris, I believe there's a little bit of extraneous noise coming out of your machine. And I have just muted you, if you don't mind. And it went away. So we'll bring you back on when the Q&A comes, or when you want to contribute, just raise your hand. Okay. So we have 6 participants, and we say good morning. Welcome to Community Church. Take a look at our banner behind me. It says, "A peace and justice congregation since 1920. All are welcome here. All races, all religions, all cultures, all genders, all orientations." And then down at the bottom, it has Community Church of Boston. Crystal Rollins Jackson, our communications director, designed that beautiful banner. The banner was donated by another friend and ally of ours, the Peace Abbey, Louis Randa. We have lots of friends at Community Church, and each one of them does their little part. And we welcome you, and we start with a quick little reading from one of our founders 100 years ago. His name was Reverend Clarence Skinner. And there's lots of wonderful passages from Clarence Skinner, and here's one of them. "Out of the world's wide ways we come to this, our house of fellowship and aspiration. Here may the evils which beset us be banished by the power of justice. The fears that have us be overcome by fresh insight. The doubts that drive us be dissolved into finer faith. Here, each in our own way, yet together, let us for a brief time look into the mysteries of life's beginning, the source out of which the endless eons roll and countless lives emerge. And with renewed hope, search through this maddening maze of things to find again life's aims and meaning, and above all, its glory." Clarence Skinner starts us off. And we also have a sweet start of this program. Our long time friends, Joan Faber and Jeff Brewer, are joining us from the town of Newton. We were just reminiscing about the 70s and 80s Morse Auditorium, which is when Joan and Jeff started playing for us. And we just are really happy that they're with us this morning. Joan and Jeff, take it away. Welcome.
Waking skies at sunrise, evening sunsets too, seem to be bringing me memories of you. Here and there and everywhere, things we used to do, and they all just recall memories of you. I wish I could forget those happy yesteryears. They have left no rooms for me of tears. Your face beams in my dreams, spite of all I do. Everything seems to bring memories of you.
Thank you, Joan and Jeff. That's beautiful. 40 years worth of music at Community Church from Joan Faber and Jeff Brewer. Well, I've got a candle and I've got a match. And there's 12 of us on this Zoom call, which I declare to be a critical mass. And there's a few more joining us on YouTube. We light a candle. That's what we always do at Community Church. For unity, for memory, for hope. And we put it right over here. And I just want to welcome you by telling you that if you weren't with us last night, we had quite a weekend. It was a symposium on Sacco and Vanzetti. We were joined by Bob Datilio, who is the world's most obsessed scholar of the Sacco and Vanzetti case that you've ever met. And he has single-handedly driven the effort to keep their memory alive in the city of Boston and to the world. We were also joined by Judge Peter Agnes, retired judge from the appeals court of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and also by Dom Capocella, who's a lawyer and retired restaurant owner from the North End, born and raised in the North End, and a couple other presenters and musicians. It was a terrific thing. We had about 65 people plus another 20 joining on YouTube. So it was just terrific to have everybody together. And we went on for 2.5 hours. I hope we don't go on for that long today because I have a yard to mow. But I want to do a couple of things that I've been doing in my sort of role here as interim administrator and musician and bottle washer and fake minister. I've really enjoyed reading to you from Eduardo Galeano, Children of the Days. Eduardo Galeano from Uruguay wrote voluminously in articles and nonfiction. He wrote a book that was called The Open Veins of Latin America, which was presented to Barack Obama by Hugo Chavez in the beginning of a United Nations speech with great fanfare. And he wrote a lot in this format of short vignettes. He wrote 3 volumes of the history of the Americas and also of the universe in short vignettes, 2 paragraphs long. This book is called Children of Fire, Memories of Fire. And I spent 3 months reading it both in Spanish and English. It was translated by Cedric Belfrage, who is a blacklisted author who went to Mexico and became a very gifted translator and interpreter. It's the most beautiful translation I've ever read. Anyway, I still love Eduardo Galeano, and this one is called Children of the Days, and it's an entry for each day of the year, and we have August 23rd. I haven't read it yet. This is a surprise. I'll read it. It's called The Impossible Country. In 1791, another owner of lands and slaves sent a letter from Haiti. The blacks are very obedient and will remain so always, it said. The letter was making its way to Paris when the impossible happened. On the night of August 22nd, a stormy night, the greatest slave uprising in the entire history of humanity exploded from the depths of the Haitian jungle. And those very, quote, very obedient blacks went on to humble the army of Napoleon Bonaparte that was soon to overrun Europe from Madrid to Moscow. It's obviously the story of Toussaint Louverture and the uprising in Haiti. I also have 3 of these books. I'm not going to do them all, but they also are a sort of a day book. And this one is called The Universe in 365 Days. And I will show you the image for today and then read to you what it is. It's about the universe. And this is August 23rd. Dark spots on Neptune. Neptune has spots. The solar system's outermost gas giant shows a nearly uniform blue hue created by small amounts of methane drifting in a thick atmosphere of nearly colorless hydrogen and helium. Dark spots do appear, however, that are anticyclones, large high-pressure systems that swirl in Neptune's cold cloud tops. 2 dark spots are visible in this picture taken by the robot Voyager, a spacecraft in 1989. An Earth-size great dark spot located on the far left, and dark spot located on the bottom. So here it is, Neptune. I also have another one that is Earth from Above. Jan Arthus Bertrand wrote this and took the photos some years ago before there were even drones. But this one is interesting. Los Angeles, California, young sportsman at Torrance Cornerstone Elementary School. And I don't know if you can see it, but it's a huge map of the United States in a playground and a child playing on the map. And there's a long description, which I won't read. I also have another one that I won't show you, but sometimes I like to show this one. It's architecture, 365 examples of amazing things that human beings have built. But I want to just go on by doing what Robert J. Lertzema, do you remember that name? He was a classical DJ at WGBH for decades, and with great grace and style, played classical music from 5 in the morning to noon or so. And he always started with what I want to start with now. This is a neighbor of ours who happens to have been around our house since June. And his name is Carolina Wren. That's me mimicking him.
I just got the very end.
Oh, I came in at the very end. Here's another one. Cheater, we cheater, we cheater, we cheater, we cheater, we. Carolina Wren sings in the morning, 5:30 a.m. or 6 when I'm making coffee, and then again in the evening. You can almost set your clock on it. It's the most beautiful thing. It's gotten me through this summer of woes that we've had with this building at Community Church, but I won't go into that. I will go into a more inspiring thing, which is a little song I'll sing a cappella that has a little part about birdsong. This is an old hymn from the South, and this is how I will sing by way of introducing Bill Alberts to share with us. Though storms of life around me rage, I read my compass true. I fix my gaze on a higher stage where the sun shines bright and new. You can do that when it comes around again. Consider the lilies of the field, neither reap nor do they sow. They stand revealed, unlocked, unsealed, for all the world to know. The sparrow sings his song of joy and flies with wondrous ease. Oh, would that I my gifts employ as do the least of these. Oh, give me the wings of Noe's dove and send me on my quest. I'll fly above to the land of love and take my promised rest. I'll fly above to the land of love and take my promised rest. And take my promised rest. That's an old hymn from a Southern hymn book. You can find a much better version of it on YouTube. Just put in Dean Stevens, Noe's Dove, N-O-E apostrophe S, Dove, D-O-V-E. Bill Alberts, we're so glad to have you with us and so glad you were willing to join us on a Sunday morning in midsummer. We don't usually do Sundays in the summertime, but this summer there seemed to be a need to be together in any way that we possibly could. And we've held several programs, and this is the last of our summer programs before we reconvene in September. September 13th, I hope as many of you, especially members, can join us. It's our annual congregational meeting. We usually have it in June, but we decided to postpone it until September because at that time we were hoping that we would be able to have it physically in September. It doesn't look like that's going to happen, but we're still toying with having a physical component of the meeting, socially distanced here in the auditorium, with a Zoom component as well. The board will try to figure that out in the upcoming days before we send out the announcement about the annual meeting September 13th. And then September 20th, we have what we've done for some years now, which is a water and stone ceremony. We usually come together and we pour water from different places where we've been during the summer and talk about how things have been and what we've done. And or we can bring stones as well. We can't do that in person this time, but we can show them off in our little rectangle, the water and the stone. And we also have sometimes called it just Soapbox Sunday. It's just kind of a meeting and gathering of everybody and a chance to reconnect. That's September 20th. And then the 27th is the official reopening of our season. We are going to do another experiment, which is to have one of our 100th anniversary concerts that was postponed. There were going to be 5 concerts. We had one of them January 11th, celebrating the first meeting of Community Church, January 11th, 1920. That one we pulled off. We had a terrific concert. Samodivi was the group. The other 4 got canceled. Not canceled, postponed, not canceled, postponed, not canceled, postponed, not canceled, postponed. But we will have one of them, the Fulani Haynes Jazz Collaborative, on September 27th, and they will be live in this auditorium to an audience of 2. I will be the host, and we will have a videographer broadcasting it to the world via Zoom and YouTube and hopefully Facebook too. So that's an announcement about what's coming up. I don't have to make much introduction to Bill, except that he is an inspiration to me. I've spent as much time as I can, which is never enough, in the archives of Community Church. And there is a huge segment of those archives that are about Bill's time in the 80s when he was the minister at Community Church. There's another box that's full of documents from Bill's lawsuit against the Methodist Church and against his psychiatrist. There's just a sheaf of articles, op-eds, submissions to different magazines and journals. It's just a prolific author's document record in our archives, and he hasn't let up yet. You can find Bill's recent decade worth of articles, both in a book that he or they published. That's a compilation of those articles, and Bill can probably talk about that, as well as a more recent book that's called The Minister Who Could Not Be Prayed Away, P-R-E-Y-E-D. And you can go online and find just a stream of Bill's articles. You can also find the links on our website, which is communitychurchofboston.org. Bill, we're just so glad to have you and so glad to hear from you again. The floor is yours, Bill. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Dean. I'm really pleased to be back at Community Church again, and to have Joan Faber and Jeff Brewer sing. When Joan sings, it's like when she sings a ballad, it's like a little bit of Saturday night on Sunday morning. And one of my favorites, I think Jeff wrote, "The place where we got married is a parking lot now. The place where we got married is an auto showroom now." That's a different kind of Sunday morning hymn. I want to thank Dean for engaging Joan and Jeff to sing It Seems Like Old Times. And they were great times at Community Church. CCB has turned 100. And its genius has always been its non-sectarian character. Its refusal to be confined to a particular religious or political group. CCB defines itself as a universal ethic, not a denominational edifice. An ethic that transcends religion, political ideology, nationality, race, and sexual orientation, and reveres all people as members of one human family. Sectarian religion and partisan politics separate people into different and often warring camps, whereas non-sectarianism provides a solidarity that brings people together around their shared humanity and issues. Jesus put the meaning of non-sectarian this way: so in everything, do to others what you would have them do to you. For this sums up the law and the prophets. And the golden rule is not uniquely a Christian teaching. Islam's prophet Muhammad taught, none of you are true believers until you love for your neighbor what you love for yourself. Judaism teaches what is hateful to you, do not do to your neighbor. This is the whole Torah, all the rest is commentary. And Confucius said, do not do to others what you do not want them to do to you. Non-sectarianism is fundamental to the golden rules universal ethic of humanness. Now I want to give some examples of CCB's non-sectarian history. In his brief history of CCB on the church's website, Reverend Peter Richardson chronicles the church's non-sectarian spirit. Reverend Richardson begins, while its first leader was a Universalist, community church was set up that there should be no denominational nor even Christian sectarians among us. Clarence Skinner, Dean of the Tufts School of Religion, founded CCB, creating a pulpit not dominated by ministers, but leaders in many fields, concurring with Emerson that the church avoided the effect of professionalism upon the human mind. According to Skinner, truth and inspiration are their own excuse for being, and that no ecclesiastical authority or sanction is necessary. For reading, which lifts the spirit, catches fire in men's hearts, and reveals some noble reach of imagination. Reverend Donald Luther picked up that non-sectarian fire and carried it forward for years. He got into trouble with Senator Joseph McCarthy's investigation of communism by inviting all kinds of speakers to community churches' free pulpit in action, including those critical of US policies. He was accused of being under Communist Party discipline and required to testify before a Massachusetts committee on the charge that he had given aid to communists. Reverend Luther testified, "Gentlemen, I plead guilty to the charge. I have given comfort and aid to all kinds of people, black and white, Jew and Gentile, Catholic and Protestant, Mohammedan and Buddhist, rich and poor, capitalist and communist, Democrat and anarchist. My exemplar is one Jesus of Nazareth, who feared not to associate with and minister to prostitutes, thieves, tax gatherers. He believed in virtue by association, not guilt by association." Reverend Luther Bended, "I am proud that over the years our people have been willing to listen to and provide a platform for countless men and women who are debarred elsewhere. Our country needs voices of dissent, diversity, and daring. It is the insurance against complacency and error which lead all closed societies to their grave." Now, I wouldn't be here addressing you today if it weren't for CCB's non-sectarian inclusiveness. When CCB was looking for a minister in 1978, I was quite available. In 1973, I was forcibly retired by the New England Conference of the United Methodist Church after performing the gay marriage of two male members of the church, who, by the way, happened to attend Boston University School of Theology, where they met. When I had been minister at Community Church for 8 years. In 1973, United Methodism's Book of Discipline states, "We do not recommend marriage between two persons of the same sex." Now, I won't go into much detail about my forced retirement, except to say that Old West was reopened in 1964, and one of its primary commitments was to provide services to humanity, quote unquote. And I was appointed to provide those services. But the services we provided anti-Vietnam War service with draft cards burned in the sanctuary, all-night drop-in center for street use doing street work among thousands of hippies who flocked to the Boston Common in 1968, creating a jazz coalition, housing the resident of theater center, housing the Brent Ceramus Brigade on its way to Cuba to cut sugar cane. That one cost us our insurance. Providing a doorstep ministry to alcoholics, becoming a legal, medical, and information center for anti-Vietnam War demonstrations at the federal building up the street from the church, and being arrested for anti-war protests, anti-Vietnam War protests, were not the kind of services to humanity the conference hierarchy had bargained for, and neither had the insurance companies. According to the insurance companies, church means midweek choir rehearsal and Sunday services. Now, CCB played a key role in resurrecting me. The story of my being extinguished and much later distinguished is described in my recently published memoir, The Minister Who Could Not Be Prayed Away, which contains a section on CCB's participating in my resurrection and giving me legitimacy again. Fortunately, certain people recommended me when I applied for the position of minister at CCB in 1978. One such person was dear Kip Tiernan, now deceased, who founded Rosie's Place, a shelter for homeless women in Boston. The letter Kip wrote to Marty Lerman, chair of CCB's Ministerial Search Committee, included the following. Bill Albert has been a political prisoner of the church for far too long. Free him, and yourselves as well, and us too. There was another letter of reference for me as I applied for the position of minister of CCB. It was written by Jeff Brewer, Joan Faber, and dear departed Sarah Benson of the singing group Clearing, who stated in part, we were involved with the Hub Theater Center, one of many social and artistic programs that flourished at Old West during Bill's ministry. During this time of political and personal pressure, Bill never turned away from his advocacy of the poor, the homeless, and the powerless of all minorities, nor from his unpopular criticism of the Vietnam War. Now, I was interviewed by Marty Lerman with other members of CCB's Ministerial Search Committee. And one question they asked me was, what is your theology? And I said, I bleed human. Everyone bleeds human. That's the genius of CCB's non-sectarianism in its commitment to everyone who bleeds human. I was most fortunate to become CCB's minister and be privileged to sit and listen to so many insightful and inspiring speakers. Noam Chomsky, Howard Zinn, Angela Davis, Dr. Beatrice Motz, Fathers Daniel and Philip Berrigan, Sister Elizabeth McAllister, Rosa Parks, to name a few. When Rosa Parks spoke, all the children in attendance were invited to go up to the stage and shake her hand. When Angela Davis was our guest speaker, she was accompanied by guards for her protection. Not ushers, guards. Not your average sedate organ intoned Sunday service with ushers. Then there was Bill Lee, the Boston Red Sox pitcher, called the Spaceman. Everyone greeted him by singing, "Take Me Out to the Ball Game." At CCB, talk led to action. From 1983 to 1985, while I was minister, CCB provided sanctuary for a Guatemalan refugee. Manuel Hernandez, who was on the Guatemalan Army's death list. CCB was one of 500 churches in the U.S. providing sanctuary for Salvadoran, Guatemalan, and other refugees fleeing oppression, much of the oppression caused by U.S. government policies. CCB became the first faith group in the Boston area to provide sanctuary. At a meeting of all the members, the consensus was reached to become a sanctuary church. We did not need to run our decision by a hierarchical body for approval. We kept our own conscience. We had the strong support of dear Reverend Victor Carpenter, now deceased, at Arlington Street Church. We also obtained the support of the leadership of the UUA. My dear, now deceased friend, Dr. Loretta Williams, then director of the UUA's Department of Social Justice, engaged then UUA President Reverend Dr. Eugene Pickett to hold a press conference at CCB, at which he affirmed our sanctuary program and the sanctuary movement. The press conference was held on the third floor in what was called the Guatemala Room, where Manuel lived. Unfortunately, I recently received an email stating that Dr. Pickett died on July 19th at age 94. His affirmation of the sanctuary program was most appreciated. The genius of CCB is its diverse, non-denominational makeup. Members identified themselves more politically than theologically. They included communists, socialists, anarchists, and capitalists. Many of them were Jews, humanists, atheists, Christians, and those of no faith tradition. Some members were involved in labor struggles and knew what it meant to be called communist. In certain circles, CCB itself was condemned as a communist front because of its various speakers' searing critique of U.S. domestic and foreign policies, thus keeping religion out of politics. The sentiment of numerous Christians was anathema to CCB members. Historically, at CCB, holiness is not determined by the shape of a building, but by involvement that shape liberation and justice. Jesus stated that his mission was to preach good news to the poor and to set the oppressed free. It is the political structures that determine who shall be rich and who shall be poor, who shall be oppressed and who shall be free. Now, regarding Manuel, with whom I still have contact through email. In fact, I had invited him to send me a statement that I would read today if he were able to do that, as I was giving the address. I haven't heard from him. I'll be sending him the address. Manuel lived on the third floor of CCB's building, and my wife Eva and our daughter Amy and I lived on the fourth floor. During his 2 years with us, Manuel spoke to some 300 groups in Massachusetts and New York about the oppression of his people and the U.S. role in that oppression. In his speaking engagements, he was always accompanied by a CCB member or a nun. We had a great relationship with nuns in the Boston area through Manuel. Or another trusted person to defend against any immigration agent seeking to arrest him. Carolyn McDade, Mel and Gertrude Friedman, Cynthia Foster, Ellen Mass, and other members and nuns who supported CCB's sanctuary program, transported Manuel safely to and from speaking engagements in and far beyond Boston. Manuel enriched our solidarity as a congregation. He also attracted people of faith and educators in the community who also played a vital role in our sanctuary program. In his poem, Politics, Manuel expresses the richness of our diversity and commonality, which are an integral part of the non-sectarian spirit. Death without life, spirit without soul, head without body, white without black, yellow without red, negative without positive, capitalism without communism. Is it possible that only the two worlds exist? To choose only one means the extermination of the child society. Hopefully, CCB's history will provide a model and inspiration for the present and future. Certainly, CCB's non-sectarian genius is very much needed today. We have a president who preys on immigrants, bans Muslims from entering the US, appeals to white supremacists, and woos white evangelical Christians with promises to accommodate their discriminatory sectarian beliefs toward LGBTQ persons and women under the guise of protecting the evangelicals' quote, religious freedom, unquote, freedom to discriminate. Ironically, President Trump touts his performance as amazing in a cognitive test that required him to remember and repeat person, woman, camera, man, and TV in that order. But he has completely failed morally to speak the truth into a camera on TV. He can say person, woman, man, and so forth in the right order, and then has no problem separating women and men and children, immigrants, from each other and denying them refuge in the US. Cognitive without conscience. President Trump is the most dangerous threat facing America. Regarding the coronavirus alone, his negligence is responsible for the deaths of tens of thousands of Americans. All he cares about is reopening and lifting the economy for the sake of his reelection campaign. Thus, as the coronavirus was spreading across America, he was talking about reopening and packing the churches at Easter. Because, quote, the day Christians celebrate the resurrection of Christ is a special day to me, unquote, he said. Never mind that health experts warned against such a move. President Trump then latched onto professional sports, pushing for their resumption in the summer, including Little League Baseball. Now it's the schools that he's pushing to reopen. His pressure on governors to reopen their states in the face of the pandemic has resulted in a spike in coronavirus cases in Texas, Florida, and Georgia. Regarding the schools, those that have reopened are struggling with the growing number of children contracting and spreading the virus. President Trump is creating a trail of countless American deaths as he pursues his narcissistic quest for re-election. He will become known as the Pied Piper of death. On August 12th, one of CCB's own members, longtime educator Mike Cushman, recently testified before the Boston City Council about children returning to school. Mike referred to the criminal misleadership of many political leaders, starting with POTUS, demonstrated by his obstructing preparations to combat the virus and its ongoing encouragement of behaviors that have spread the virus. Mike said that the invisible world behind the curtains are the owners and masters of our economy. They want schools to be reopened so that the economy will begin to move and they can make a ton of money. That is the goal of capitalism. And human lives are expendable. Mike continues, the second world is inhabited by Boston School Superintendent Dr. Costelius and most of our elected officials. It is their job to be loyal servants of capital while providing a human face to the public. Mike's conclusion, if capital will dictate that we must return to school, then I call on all stakeholders to refuse. We must go on strike. We must shut this system down. It will be up to us to protect human health and life. And then on August 19th, Mike testified again, this time before the Boston School Committee. He began by stating, I fully support the Boston Teachers Union's proposal to open schools remotely with a phased-in return into safe facilities for those children most in need of in-person services. Faith leaders do well to criticize certain of President Trump's blatant anti-immigrant, xenophobic, and racist policies. But they now need to see the existential threat he poses to America and call for his resignation and prosecution for his crimes against the American people and others. By faith leaders, I'm referring to the Council of Bishops of the United Methodist Church, the president of the Unitarian Universalist Association, the Catholic Council of Bishops, the Episcopalian and Lutheran and other faith leaders. Today's faith leaders need to be guided by the spirit of 19th century Unitarian minister Theodore Parker, who declared, the church is called to lead public opinion, not follow it. Prophets of the people, not chaplains of the status quo. Last September, I was honored by Boston University School of Theology, which selected me as a 2019 distinguished alum. BUST is a prominent United Methodist Church seminary. At the event, I presented a paper called From Extinguished to Distinguished, which saying my wife Eva came up with. In the presentation, I quoted the United Methodist Church's mission statement that states, the mission of the church is to make disciples of Jesus Christ for the transformation of the world. I ended by saying that the challenge we face is not about transforming everyone into our likeness, but transforming ourselves by recognizing the likeness we share with all other human beings. Love your neighbor as yourself, not make your neighbor like yourself. My steeple has become the aspirations of all people. My altar, the common ground on which everyone walks. And my cross, the oppression from which any individual or group is seeking to liberate himself or herself or itself. Thank you, people of CCB, for welcoming me and making possible the journey we shared.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
I thought the same thing and didn't follow through trying to contact Manuel, who I've had contact with through Facebook. His true name is Diego Mendoza Lacan. He goes back and forth between Ottawa, Canada and Guatemala. He's retired now. I wanted to just show folks, let's see if I can get it close. This is a piece of Manuel's artwork. I don't know.
A great artist.
He's a beautiful artist. And there were postcards of his artwork that were at some time printed by the church. And they're just really beautiful images. And I would like to reprint them for our 100th anniversary. I think that would be a nice little thing.
He lived on the 3rd floor of the CCB building, and he painted a beautiful picture of Trinity Church and his people. And as I recall, that painting showed how the church itself can oppress people. Anyway, we have that. We have that, yeah.
There's also a poster that was printed. Many posters of his painting were printed, and that poster is framed down in the lobby of the church. And, we have several copies kicking around upstairs as well. But it would be just terrific to get Manuel/Diego to join us for on a Sunday.
That'd be a big deal.
Some of the possibilities of Zoom are incredible, and I will try to make that happen. And we
That would be nice.
have a conversation with Manuel.
You could have quite a reunion of all kinds of people. One of the things Manuel did was not only bring us together at CCB, but brought a lot of people in the community together with us. There was solidarity with him. He embodied what we believed, and he just became a catalyst to unite us around him and that issue.
There's one recording that I found in the archives recently. It's a recording of Manuel giving a talk here along with Rigoberta Menchú, Nobel Peace Prize winner from Guatemala.
Yeah.
And that one will be digitized and put up either on our YouTube page or our SoundCloud page. But I want to just do a quick little, one more image for you. I don't know if you can see that. It's a very beautiful basket from Uganda. And it is our official collection basket this morning. I'm sorry I can't 3D print it to you so you can put a check, a paper check, or a piece of cash. Remember that cash, that old stuff, into it. But if you would like to send a check to Community Church, 565 Boylston Street, Boston, Massachusetts, 02116, we would accept it gladly. We have a pretty unusual pandemic circumstance where the church, which relies very heavily on the rent from the first floor, has basically forgiven almost a year of rent with the restaurant in the form of no rent during 3.5 months that they were closed, and then reduced rent for upcoming months until it is reestablished to its original lease amount. So we don't advertise ourselves as needy. We are wealthy church, especially in human beings, but we also happen to be pretty cash strapped right now. We also just found out we have no heat for this winter, and we are doing a very exciting thing, which is interviewing HVAC installers to put in complete electric heat pump HVAC for the entire building, which will be very expensive and also will save us a ton of money in the long run, but in the very long run. So that is going to happen. It's a lot of work putting it into place. Other challenges as well that I won't go into, but don't forget, a check in the mail, or you can go to our website, which is communitychurchofboston.org, and there is a link to credit card or PayPal donations. And that's what I want to say, to welcome again Jeff and Joan for one final song. We might call it the offertory song, during which you think about, oh, CCB needs my money more than I do. So Jeff and Joan, thanks again for joining us, and please, the floor is yours. Wait, not yet. Let me unmute you. Charlie, help me unmute Jeff and Joan. I'm trying and it's not working.
They've got to unmute themselves.
Jeff, you have to unmute yourself, I guess. There we go.
I'll get by as long as I have you. Though there be rain and darkness too, I'll not complain. I'll see it through. Poverty may come to me, that's true. But what care I, say, I'll get by as long as I have you. I'll get by as long as I have you. Though there be rain and darkness too, I'll not complain. I'll see it through. Poverty may come to me, that's true. But what care I, say, I'll get by as long as I have you.
That's so lovely.
Hey,
Let's hear it for Joan
that's,
and Jeff.
that's one of my favorite hymns. Thank you, Joan and Jeff, for singing that song again.
You are so welcome.
Oh, Joan and Jeff and Bill. Bill, I look forward to getting together with you by phone or Zoom or maybe even in person. Imagine that. And just maybe an oral history of your very best and maybe some of your not so best memories. You know, just whatever really comes through of your time at Community Church. I have compiled another binder here that is Community Church speakers 1921 to the present. It took some doing. There was a document that was 1921 to 1960, but I had to go through all the yearbooks and Xerox a copy of the the thing that they used to do. There was a book that went out at the end of the year. There was a fundraising appeal with the text of one of the addresses, as well as a summary of the year's speakers and addresses. And during your years, it's phenomenal. It's like you go through it, and the names are just so incredible. You mentioned some of them, and I want to mention some more. Robert Mirapol, Morton Halperin, Howard Zinn, Mel King, Judge Margaret Burnham, Judge Shubo, LD Shubo, Kip Tiernan, Maxine Klein, Stephen Kinzer, who is going to join us, by the way, in the fall, October, Jonathan Kozol, Ossie Davis. It goes on and on. Caldwell Taylor, Pete Seeger, Helen Nearing, Benjamin Chavis, Barbara Ehrenreich, Reverend Donald Lothrop speaking, Francis Fox Piven. What I just want to say is that you certainly did take Lothrop's genius, which Victor Carpenter said this to me. He said Lothrop's genius was being able to rope well-known, high-profile figures in the struggle for social activism and for a better United States, and get them to speak at community church for basically no money. And you continued that. And I don't know, all I want to say is just we're so grateful to that. And I'm especially grateful myself, just because I don't see myself, we keep saying we're going to hire a minister, we're going to hire a minister. And I keep saying, I'm not that guy. Some people say, oh, Dean, you could do that. You could do that. But the inspiration comes from Lothrop and from Reverend Alberts and from David Olson to do amazing things with the incredible 100 years of history that is this thing, community church. And I think that all I can say is I've got a job, which is keep the ball rolling, and keep the world in conscience of this very special thing that we have here and that we do, in our place with this whole new possibility of broadcasting to the planet, and of having speakers from all kinds of places. So that's what I want to say to you, Bill, and I look forward to more conversation. I really am convinced that there's somebody who wants to write a book about community church. I'm convinced that there's some PhD candidate who would just love to do what I have just been like, enjoying the feast, which is the archives of community church in pretty terrible shape, just in a broom closet. But now it so happens they are spread out all over the 5th floor of our building. We can't rent that space out because it needs some serious remedial work. We just got the first piece of it, which is sprinklers on the 5th and 4th floor, which we've been hoping for a long time. We have it now. It also needs serious window work and remodeling and upgrade. But as long as that's happening, the archives have the entire 5th floor, which means that we can really spread them out and they're not in a tiny broom closet. If you want to, folks, check out a little quick tour that I did of those archives. There's a YouTube that I did just with my phone, and it's about 25 minutes of just a walk through what is there and just an assessment. And I hope that is just a little taste for folks, both members and not, to get interested in community church and what we have in our past and what my hope is that we have in our future. So I'm going to open the floor after blabbing myself too much, and find out if there's somebody who wants to say hi to Bill or say hi to everybody else here, or ask a question or make an observation. I am looking through you can also do it through the chat. Looking through our list of folks who are online here. You can also make a comment on the YouTube live page as well. Ken, I shall unmute thee, but you have to unmute yourself. There you go, Ken.
Reverend Alberts, I'd just like to ask you a kind of a general question. What is your view of American society now, and where do you think we can make progress for social justice given the current situation? Any thoughts at all?
I think the American society's struggling with certain basic issues that have been around a long time. And I think President Trump is merely symbolic of that. He has wooed white Christian, white evangelical Christians, and done a good job of wooing them. But all they're interested in is gaining power over people to impose their sectarian beliefs. We're now facing. Before I say more, than there needs to be more assertiveness from mainstream faith leaders. They need to start really dealing with Trump, with his psychopathic lying, with how dangerous he is. And they'll be critical of him, but they won't call for his removal and prosecution. And they're careful not to alienate some of their own members who are Republicans. But I think they could do much more. As far as where American society is now, we have an election coming up. I don't think much of Joe Biden. But it's possible that Biden may, if he wins, involve certain people who are healthier and are more committed to a society that is just for all of our people. Okay. Maybe somebody else has another answer to your question.
Judith, I see your hand up. I think you folks need to unmute yourself so that I can unmute you. There you go, Judith.
Can you hear me?
Hi, Judith.
Okay, hi there. Hi, Bill.
Hi, Judith.
When I first came to Boston in '76, within about a year, we joined the community church, and we had our children there, and there was a very active children's group, which my children remember very fondly. And it was a very important time for us because we had come from New York City and we didn't know anybody at all. And it was a way of joining into the progressive movement of our times, into a spiritual community for our children. And I remember it very fondly, your wife and your daughter. So I just wanted to say hi from old times.
Thank you, Judy. I remember you well. I remember we had a discussion group one time at your home.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah.
What was being discussed? Do you remember?
Well, basically the world situation, or the situation in our country. What we always discuss, how to make things better and
Yeah.
oppose those things that are oppressing people. But I'd like to ask you a personal question. What is your daughter doing?
My daughter has a PhD in child development. And she's 42 now. When we went to community church, she was 3 months old. My goodness. And Copley Square was her playground. She's now, she and her husband he has a PhD in child development too. They're now creating a homeschool.
Home-based school.
Home-based school.
learning center.
A home-based school at the
Boy Scouts headquarters
Boy Scout headquarters
in Milton.
in Milton. But they're developing this homeschool program, and they want to provide this as a model for other people. And she has 2 children. Aoife's 9 and Leo will turn, no, Aoife's 8 and will turn 9 on Tuesday. And Leo's 5. 6. He's 6. I'm having some help from my wife in the background. 6 and 9, and they live next door. We're separated by a mudroom in Canton, Mass. So we're very fortunate. And my daughter and I have written 3 or 4 articles together. That's kind of fun.
Great.
That's lovely.
I will also let people know that you can find the articles at counterpunch.org. And they keep coming, and we keep posting them on our website as well. Charlie.
Hi. I remember Dean mentioning in a program we had a couple of months ago that there's some association between the community church and the cemetery. And I was wondering if you knew anything more about that.
That was a question for me. What's the question again?
Yes. We learned recently that there was some association between a cemetery down south of Boston. I get the exact town, but
I think it's in
down in that
Canton.
direction.
A cemetery.
Yes. Yeah. It's obviously not ringing a bell. I was hoping it would, but
I can tell you about it a tiny bit. Just that in the archives, Lothrop at some point had some association with the cemetery that's called the Knollwood Cemetery. I'd like to take a trip down there. And they were, through the church, they were selling plots, get yourself buried in a little plot with other community church members. I think Lothrop might be buried there himself. I'm not positive about that. And I need to ask some Lothrops. I've just made a connection with Lothrop's daughter-in-law. Her name is Michaela Lothrop, and I connected with her because John Lothrop, who was Donald's son, recently passed away. He lived in Belfast, Maine. And there was an obituary in the paper that was sent to me by John Mannheim, who summers up in Maine. And so I went on the website and put in a condolence on behalf of Community Church and asked them to be in touch because we have this amazing archive of the correspondence of the grandpa, which is boxes and boxes of letters of Lothrop, some of them with very luminary figures, letters between him and Martin Luther King, mostly about booking for Community Church, but others with a lot of other figures who spoke here, some of a lot of substance and interest. Anyway, Michaela Lothrop
Yeah, I know nothing about that.
gave me a little news about the family, and I'm hoping that this fall, as part of our 100th anniversary, we can broadcast a recording of one of Don Lothrop's last sermons that he gave here in 1993, when he was in his 80s, but still had the fire like you wouldn't believe. And maybe have that as a way to get some more Lothrops to tune in and tell us more, and see if they have any more materials or recordings or transcripts of Lothrop's sermons, which would be really good to have to add to our collection. But yes, there was this relationship with the church, where Knollwood Cemetery in Canton or Sharon, I'm not sure which, was Lothrop was in the newsletters actively inviting members of the church to be buried there.
Yeah.
Kevin?
I could say, can I say something about that? Because I had been a member of the Unitarian Church in Canton, and I remember being there at the memorial service for Donald Lothrop at the Knollwood Cemetery. I believe it's in Sharon. Yeah. So I just want you to know that I happened to be that. I got to meet David Olson, and I started to meet a lot of the people from Community Church at that time. This is early 2000s, 2002 or something like that.
That's when 2003.
Was it 2003? Yeah, that's probably right. That's right. Yeah.
Well, I think a field trip would be in order.
Oh, definitely, definitely.
We'll look you up, and we'll have lunch, and we'll go see who's buried there.
That sounds like, yeah. How many community church members are buried at Knollwood Cemetery? That's it.
I mean, the office could tell you, I suppose.
We can have bets about it. Yeah.
I mean, if here he was with a congregation of 500 people coming on any given Sunday in the 50s, he might have sold a few plots. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe.
Hi, this is Alan. I wonder if I could say something.
Alan, we can hear you.
Good. Yeah, I kind of wanted to just jump in so I can jump back out again and listen. I've been having a wonderful time listening. I'm on the phone. And so I want to say to Bill, thank you so much. And, there's all these limitations to electronics and so on, but when I listen on phone, my computer connection isn't very stable here. But on the phone, I plug my stereo into my phone, and I've got these great Bose speakers, and I want you to know, Bill, you are towering oratory in my house. It was just a wonderful, wonderful talk. And I just want to thank you so much for coming and participating. And the simplicity of your message, it's like the answer is really not that hard. It's getting people to do it. And you mentioned the faith community and leaders in the faith community, and I wholeheartedly agree that people are just kind of going along for a very dysfunctional, unhealthy ride, and it's deadly, and it's very hard for many people. And but anyway, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I was very moved, very moved. Thank you. I'm a member of the church. I've been a member since 1999, and was hanging around a little bit before that. And so I try to pitch in and help a little bit myself, and more so lately than some of the past years. But I really thank you again for coming and participating.
Thank you.
You're
Thanks,
welcome.
Alan. I mentioned that Alan, I think some of Alan's first contact with Community Church was through Cynthia Foster, and through their
or
mutual
tax resistant.
practice of tax resistance.
Yes, that's right.
The Foster of blessed memory, whose artwork graces some places in this church, and there's a lot more up in the archives that could be taken care of and framed. Cynthia Foster, who quoted, very frequently quoted Clarence Skinner, who said, "War is the quintessence of all evils. It draws all the other evils within itself." It had us all scurrying to the dictionary to look up quintessence, which I had forgot what it meant.
And I have, can you hear me?
Dave Lewitt.
Yeah.
Join us.
I have a big oil color painting by Cynthia Foster, which will go to the church before I kick off. But anyway, I want to thank Bill for mentioning Kip Tiernan. I want to thank you, Bill, for your comments about the system, and say that Kip Tiernan also had a few words about the system. I want to call people's attention to the fact that a memorial for Kip Tiernan was set up only a block away from Community Church on Dartmouth Street, near the corner of Newbury, just past Old South Church if you're walking away from Copley Square. It's an interesting monument, a different kind of thing. It's a set of arches made of stainless steel, each of which contains quotations from Kip Tiernan's writings. And one of them at least connects the unfortunate individuals that she had helped a great deal with the system, and critically about the system. So I hope that CCB members will take the time, a few minutes, to stop by that memorial and have a look at what she had to say.
Wow, thanks, Dave. I didn't know about that. I need to walk over there on my way out the door today.
Absolutely, it's very easy.
And look at this memorial to Kip Tiernan, right, sort of on the edge of Old South Church.
It's just past Old South Church. It sits right next to one of the windows of the Snowden School, okay, on the corner of Dartmouth and Newbury.
That's pretty great. I didn't even know it was there, and it joins somebody. Maybe we should be the ones who lead a walking tour of all the different memorials that are right within walking distance. A. Philip Randolph in Back Bay Station. Harriet Tubman over on Columbus Avenue, and of course on Commonwealth Avenue, Mary Dyer. That would be
absolutely
really interesting history walk, justice walk.
Yeah, I would suggest at Kip's and these other monuments that CCB people leave a bouquet of flowers, attach them to the monument the way flowers have been attached very close by to the monument to the firemen who died in the collapse of what's the name of it? The big building on the corner of Commonwealth and Dartmouth. There was a big fire there. Vendôme, yes. So there's a beautiful monument to those firemen who died, and sometimes people will put a flower wreath around part of that monument.
What year was the Vendôme fire?
I don't really know, but it had to have been like 30 years ago, I guess, 20 20 or 30 years ago.
Yeah.
I think it was 1938.
1938?
That early?
Wow, okay. Good while back. Okay. Well, here we are, meeting at the building, soon be over, say I. Charlie?
I have one more question.
Jim, please.
Yeah, I got married in 1959, and we had our reception at the Von Dome. So unless I screwed up my times, it had to be after that it burned.
Could that have been the rebuilt Von Dome, or was that?
It could easily be. It could easily be, but
And I thought it was around 1970.
Yeah,
I'm with you.
Around that time. Yeah.
I think I remember it, and I was not around in the 30s.
I was born in 32, so that's.
What's that sound? What's that sound?
That sound is from Jim Casteris. I've just muted Jim. Sorry, Jim.
Bye, Jim.
Yeah.
Turn your mic off, Jim.
My
'cause
phone is
there's a lot
ringing.
of noise. All right. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Thank you, Bill Alberts. Thank you so much, Joan and Jeff. It's so great to hear your beautiful music once more.
One more comment from Jim.
One last comment, Jim.
Reverend Alberts, that was beautiful. Fantastic today. Thank you.
Oh, thanks, Jim.
What a pleasure to meet you, Jim. Bill, sorry.
Let's
Yeah,
have
Jim.
one last round of applause for Jeff and Joan and Bill. And we hope to see you all soon.
See you soon.
And let's declare the meeting
Adjourn.
to have ended. Love you all, and we'll see you again soon.
See you soon.